Now, open-world games are among the most popular video game genres for a good reason. They offer up an obscene amount of content to experience within a richly realized sprawling world, and who doesn't love that? And generally speaking, most open-world games are designed to reward the player for straying from the beaten path and exploring every last possible nook and cranny on the map. But the sheer mind-boggling amount of work that goes into even a mediocre open-world game means that developers can't always manage to balance everything correctly, sometimes resulting in players being effectively punished for their adventurous curiosity. Because, they've just become stupidly overpowered. So let's take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 open world games that punish you for 100%. Number 10, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Now, there's a fundamental disconnect between the sheer amount of awesome things The Witcher 3 allows you to do and how thoroughly they undermine the natural flowing cadence of the main quest line. Now, the game's side quests are among the most acclaimed in gaming, enough that many consider them superior to the main ones, so you really can't be blamed for tackling a ton of them as soon as they're made available, right? Well, except that doing so will ensure that you're hilariously overpowered throughout the bulk of the story. If you complete a large number of side content before reaching the third act, you'll absolutely breeze through the rest of the main quests. As incredible a game as it is, due to the lack of difficulty scaling and over-generous doling out of XP, especially in main storyline missions, you're basically given an easier, less rewarding experience if you plow through all of the side quests early. It might actually be unfulfilling enough to actively encourage you to ignore side content on your first playthrough and instead focus on a more challenging main quest line, whilst saving all of that extra stuff for another go-around. Number 9, Spider-Man Miles Morales. While most open-world games on this list at least offer up hundreds of hours of potential content which would dissuade some from even attempting 100%, the same can't really be said for Spider-Man Miles Morales. It's perfectly reasonable to 100% this game in less than 20 hours, and so even non-completionists might even be tempted to give it a shot, even if only to wring a little more value out of their purchase. As a result, it's incredibly easy just to blow through all of the available side content, level up a ton, and have enough skill points accrued to become hilariously overpowered. In turn, this basically makes the latter stages of the campaign a mere triviality, at least on the amazing difficulty and below, that is. While some might argue that a Spider-Man game by its sheer nature handles being OP better than other open-world games, I mean, it's about superheroic wish fulfillment after all, it does nevertheless make the air quotes tougher final hours of the game seem a little bit too easy for their own good. Number 8, Kingdoms of AMALUR Reckoning. The original release of Kingdoms of AMALUR Reckoning is infamous for de-incentivizing veering off the critical path if you even want a remotely challenging experience with the main questline. Due to the abundance of side quests, high XP yield, and respawning enemies, it is incredibly easy to accidentally overlevel yourself, enough so that fans have even gone to the lengths of creating their own guides for how to avoid doing so. Overleveling can make combat intensely boring as you just rip through enemies with a mechanical efficiency, while gaining little of interest from their drops. It is a game that absolutely does not require grinding from the player at all, and can arguably become so easy through progression as to feel almost broken. Even if you deliberately ignore some side quests that you actually want to play and consistently run past enemies, you're still going to almost certainly have an easy time with the main campaign. So if you're trying to do everything, well, it's going to become a cinch to the point of tedium. Thankfully, the 2020 remaster reworked the enemy scaling in order to offer more pushback, even if it still is far from perfect. Number 7, Borderlands. Now, this is true in varying degrees of all the 3 mainline Borderlands games, whereby blasting your way through the side content, especially if you include the DLC, along with the main story in a single-player mode, is a guaranteed path to become outrageously OP. Being a completionist will ensure the focal engagements offer up little to no resistance, even later in the game, and as fun as the combat feels regardless, some of the shine does get taken off it when there's no real sense of accomplishment. Thankfully, Borderlands 2 introduced the considerably more difficult True Vault Hunter mode, effectively a new game plus. But for anyone who generally beats games once and then just moves on, well, it didn't provide much solace. If you want to just comprehensively beat a Borderlands game once and start playing something else, you need to either ditch some of the side content or make peace with the fact that you will absolutely rip and tear through this game without much opposition. Number 6, Assassin's Creed VALHALLA. The Assassin's Creed games get regularly ragged on for their stringent adherence to the Ubisoft formula, whereby the map is cluttered with a litany of peripheral gubbins blatantly intended to pad out the experience and increase its perceived value. But an equally disappointing byproduct of this is that in the case of Assassin's Creed Creed Valhalla, hoovering up all of this side content makes the game absurdly easy. It doesn't help at all that Valhalla is by far the easiest of the series' open world entries, and so even with a cursory amount of busy work completed, you'll be able to soundly curb stomp the majority of what the main game throws at you. Naturally, anybody putting in 100 hours plus into a completionist run will end up doing a lot of tediously unchallenging work, even on the higher difficulties. Few people want an Assassin's Creed game to be like Dark Souls, but the overall leveling system feels woefully unbalanced for anybody wandering off the main path. Number 5. XENOBLADE Chronicles 3. Surely no open world game in recent memory has been guiltier of punishing your curiosity than XENOBLADE Chronicles 3. It's arguably been a significant problem with the series since its inception, that by simply stopping to explore the lush world, you're liable to become so powerful that the main story is an absolute joke. Given the ludicrous amounts of things that you can and probably will want to do in the game, it's incredibly difficult to keep step with the level recommendations for the main questline, short of actually forcing yourself to stop exploring, and that absolutely sucks. This obviously isn't the way that most people want to experience the story, but the alternative is just bossing your way through it with minimal resistance. Perhaps worst of all though, being over-leveled will also result in you receiving a meager amount of class points, making it difficult to advance your class progress. If that's not punishing you for doing everything this game has to offer, what else is? A game with this much to explore and experience shouldn't penalize the player for daring to do so. Number 4. Dragon's Dogma. If you bother to complete most of the side quests in Dragon's Dogma, let alone all of them, prepare for the rest of the main story to feel like a joyless chore, given how easily you'll just steamroll through it. Once you reach level 30, there is little in the main game that'll be anything beyond a mild inconvenience, enough that fans have even created mods to change how much XP is doled out throughout. As terrific as the combat is in Dragon's Dogma, it can't fully compensate for how easily it can become a challenge-devoid experience. Though the enhanced Dark Arisen edition did at least provide a few welcome tweaks to the overall difficulty level. All the same, for a game with a level cap of 200, you'll be able to wipe the floor with most about everything long before that, and the power fantasy of being an unstoppable juggernaut doesn't quite paper over the eventual boredom that sets in. Number 3. Crackdown. Crackdown is admittedly a deeply silly, rough-around-the-edges franchise that probably wouldn't have hooked many players in if it offered a crushing level of difficulty. That said, it's easy to imagine many dipping from each of the game's mid-campaign, given how easily you can become an absolute Goliath against which nothing stands much of a chance. It's incredibly simple to end up leveled far past the recommended point for a given mission, and while there's absolutely a fleeting joy to obliterating enemies as a can't-be-stopped badass, the general lack of variety means that being overpowered soon enough just becomes a real bore. Crackdown 3 admittedly offered up a little more challenge than its predecessors by way of a dynamic AI system, but it was still exceptionally easy to smite anything the game threw at you with just a little exploration. A power fantasy is one thing, but when the gameplay is so dead simple and lacking in finesse, it's just not enough. Number 2. God of War RAGNARÖK. God of War RAGNARÖK is an astonishing achievement and one of the finest AAA games of the last few years, hands down, but that doesn't mean that it's perfect. Despite how expertly engineered and designed the game undeniably is, it nevertheless suffers from one of its predecessor's most cited issues, a lack of balance between side quests and mainline content. In RAGNARÖK, if you dare to tackle the side quests as they become available rather than saving them for later on, you're liable to end up with a comically OP Kratos, a sheer wrecking ball of a protagonist who will pulverize his way to easy victory. Given the majority of the game's side quests are well worth playing as they add a lot of flavor and backstory to the casted characters, you can't really blame players for wanting to mop up every last one they can find. The end result, though, is that the tension of the main campaign will end up unavoidably diluted, and so players are forced to make an agonizing choice between ingesting the story-based side quests as they pop up, as they were clearly designed to be, or saving them for later and pushing forward for a more challenging main story. Given that the side quests are smartly woven into the point of the game that they become available, neither choice is actually ideal at all and effectively creates a problem for players who wish to industriously experience everything in an organic way. And number 1, Dragon Age Inquisition. Though Dragon Age Inquisition is admittedly only a semi-open world game, it still does fall prey to the same pitfall as all of these prior games, and that is failing to reconcile the appeal of going for 100% with a meaningful, challenging main questline. From early on in the game, there is a jaw-dropping number of side quests which can be completed, though doing so will quickly ensure that you are, you guessed it, over-leveled. It's clear that BioWare mistakenly assumed that most players would rinse the story at warp speed and then return to the side content. But given how many fans have complained about ending up OP long before the final boss fight, that clearly wasn't the case. Now in fairness, Inquisition's side missions aren't actually all that great, and for all but the most obsessive of players it becomes pretty easy to persuade yourself to leave a lot of them well alone. But for those who do accept the challenge and try to knock everything off, well, they're going to wind up with a risibly anticlimactic final battle. What a great reward for exploration, right? And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 open world games that punish you for 100%. I hope you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Instagram at RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Hope you're treating yourself well, my friend. I hope that you are aiming for that 100% completion of your own goals, because that is a very admirable path indeed and will force you to challenge yourself each and every day, and that is never a bad thing. But remember, if things do get a bit too much, it is always okay, nay, it is necessary to take a break every once in a while, to take a step back from things that are causing you stress and strain and allowing yourself to rest mentally and physically. Doing so will give you something that is incredibly useful, and that is perspective. It will allow you to look at situations and see where you're doing things wrong, where you can apply your energies better, and sometimes when you might need to ask for help, and there is no shame in that, my friend. Asking for help from friends, family, and professionals in the support industry is encouraged because these people want you to do well, and so do I, my friend. So get out there and smash it, but if you're not feeling it, take a little bit of a break first. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.